A huge shift is happening right now in the world's energy markets. It didn't start with a big declaration or an act of war. Instead, it's happening quietly, with signatures on contracts and massive oil tankers being rerouted across the ocean. While Washington has been caught up in its own political drama, a new energy alliance has been forming, and it looks like it's designed to leave the United States out in the cold. This is about power, oil, and what's next for the global economy. It's about how China, the world's hungriest oil consumer, is systematically reducing its reliance on American energy. This isn't just another trade tiff, it's a strategic pivot with massive consequences. The very foundation of American economic strength, built for decades on the power of the petrodollar, is being challenged. And this is exactly the kind of scenario that would have had Donald Trump and his America First team in a total panic. While the political world was busy watching the latest trade negotiations, China quietly delivered a stunning economic blow to American energy dominance. It came in the form of a single, chilling trend. In a move sending shockwaves through the oil industry, the world's largest energy market has dramatically cut its purchases of U.S. crude. Instead, it's turning to two of America's biggest adversaries, Russia and Iran. This isn't just a market fluctuation, it's a calculated geopolitical power play that threatens to chip away at the foundation of American economic power, leaving the U.S. dangerously exposed. Here's how it all went down, and why this story is so much bigger than just a few lost oil sales. The Great Wall of Zero. For years, the idea of American energy dominance was a big part of U.S. foreign policy. The shale revolution turned the United States into a global energy powerhouse, with U.S. crude oil production hitting a record-breaking 13.3 million barrels per day in May 2025. American oil tankers were a common sight in ports all over the world, especially in China, the planet's biggest oil importer. It seemed like a win-win, America's endless supply meeting China's bottomless demand. But then, the bottom fell out. The flow of U.S. oil to China, which once looked like an unbreakable economic chain, has been squeezed. Data shows a sharp contraction in U.S. oil and gas exports to China, a dramatic reversal from the growth seen just a year or two before. This is no accident. As recently as August 2025, reports confirm that Beijing is openly rejecting U.S. demands to stop its energy trade with sanctioned nations. After tense trade talks, China's foreign ministry didn't mince words, stating on social media that China will always ensure its energy supply in ways that serve our national interests. Coercion and pressuring will not achieve anything. And this isn't a bluff. While the door to the world's biggest market hasn't been completely slammed shut, it's clear that it's being deliberately closed to American oil, while being thrown wide open for others. Beijing is sending a clear message to Washington. We don't need your oil, and we're building a world where we might not need your currency either. This represents a major realignment in global energy flows, and we're just starting to feel the tremors. The why behind the pivot. So why would China make such a drastic move? Why turn its back on a reliable supplier like the United States? The answer is a tangled mess of geopolitics, economics, and a powerful drive for self-preservation. This isn't just about market prices, it's a strategic move in a much bigger game for global influence. First and most importantly, China is pivoting to America's rivals. As Beijing turns away from U.S. oil, it's rolling out the red carpet for Russian and Iranian crude, often bought at a steep discount. In April 2025, Chinese imports of Russian oil jumped by 20% to over 1.3 million barrels per day. This fire sale helps Russia fund its economy and military, despite Western sanctions, with China acting as its main economic lifeline. The story with Iran is even more stark. With Tehran under heavy U.S. sanctions, China has become its most critical customer. Some estimates suggest that China is absorbing a massive portion of Iran's oil exports, which could amount to over 1 million barrels flooding into the country every single day. This trade happens through a shadowy network of dark fleet tankers that switch off their transponders to dodge detection, all to keep the oil flowing and get around American oversight. This alliance of convenience does a few things. For China, it means huge amounts of discounted energy, giving its economy a leg up. For Russia and Iran, It's an economic pressure release valve, undermining the entire point of U.S. sanctions. Together, they're creating a closed-loop energy system that's increasingly insulated from American political pressure. The second reason is what's known as the Malacca Dilemma. For decades, Chinese military planners have obsessed over a single geographic weakness, the Strait of Malacca. This narrow waterway is the choke point where most of China's imported oil has to pass. The U.S. Navy and its allies have a strong presence there. In a conflict, the U.S. could theoretically set up a blockade, choke off China's energy, and bring its economy to its knees in months. This fear drives China's every move. Building overland pipelines from Russia is one part of the fix. By getting more energy from its northern neighbor and from Iran through different routes, Beijing is desperately trying to engineer a bypass around the Malacca choke point, making itself less vulnerable to American naval power. The third and maybe the boldest piece of the puzzle is the direct challenge to the US dollar itself. This whole strategy isn't just about barrels of oil, it's about what they're paid for with. For 50 years, the global energy system has run on the petrodollar. Nations needed US dollars to buy oil, creating constant demand for the currency and giving the US incredible economic power. This system lets America run huge deficits and use the dollar as a weapon through sanctions. China, Russia, and Iran see this system as a weapon pointed right at them. So they're building an alternative. Trade between them is increasingly settled in Chinese yuan. Recent speculation about the expiration of a decades-old U.S.-Saudi agreement that was a cornerstone of the petrodollar has only added to this trend, though the agreement's formal status remains unconfirmed. Still, nations like Saudi Arabia are now joining collaborative digital currency projects like Project and Bridge alongside China. Every barrel of oil sold for yuan is another small crack in the foundation of the petrodollar system. Beijing is playing the long game, setting the stage for a world where American sanctions don't matter because the financial plumbing they depend on has been bypassed. The consequence, America's dominance under pressure. What does this all mean for the United States? The consequences aren't some far-off theory. They're real, and they are starting to hit American workers, industries, and its place in the world. First is the direct economic hit to the American heartland. The U.S. oil and gas industry supports millions of jobs, and states like Texas, North Dakota, and Louisiana have built their modern economies on exporting shale oil. When your biggest potential customer purposefully looks elsewhere, the impact is immediate. Tankers that might have gone to China have to find new destinations, potentially at lower prices. While the U.S. is still a top producer, losing a premium market makes it harder to sustain profits and investment in future drilling, impacting high-paying jobs. Second, this is a major blow to American geopolitical power. U.S. foreign policy has long leaned on economic sanctions to punish its enemies. But what happens when those sanctions stop working? By creating a huge market for sanctioned Russian and Iranian oil, China is effectively neutering America's most powerful non-military tool. They're showing the rest of the world that there's a path forward that doesn't run through Washington, D.C. This emboldens other nations to push back against U.S. pressure, creating a more fractured world where American influence is shrinking. The current administration is in a tough spot. Escalating into a full-blown trade war with massive tariffs risks hurting American consumers and other industries, like agriculture, that still depend on China. The U.S. is caught in a strategic trap. Finally, we are seeing the start of a new fractured global order. The era of a single U.S. policed global system is fading. We're entering a world with competing economic blocks, each with its own currencies and supply chains. The dollar's share of global reserves has already been slowly dropping, from over 70% at the start of the century to just under 60% today, and this trend continues steadily. This isn't just about China. It's about the rise of BRICS and other emerging economies that are building their own institutions to challenge the Western-led order. They see a future where trade is settled in multiple currencies and where energy security is found in alliances that Washington can't control. This shift is more than just a headline. It's a fundamental change to the world we live in. The fight for the future of energy is also the fight for the future of global power. If you found this breakdown insightful and want to stay ahead of the critical stories shaping our world, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. China's quiet, calculated decision to pivot away from American oil is more than just a trade statistic. It's a declaration of economic independence. It's a carefully planned strategy to shield itself from American pressure, lock down its energy future, and challenge the very foundation of U.S. global power. By forging an energy alliance with Russia and Iran, China isn't just getting the oil it needs, it's also systematically weakening U.S. sanctions and chipping away at the dominance of the petrodollar. The United States is at a crossroads. For decades, it enjoyed the exorbitant privilege of controlling the world's reserve currency and policing global energy. That era is now under direct attack. The road ahead is full of risk, where every move could either spark a devastating trade war or mean a slow decline in global influence. The new reality is that the U.S. is no longer the only big player on the board. A new game is starting, and the rules are being rewritten in Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran. The final unsettling question is this. With its energy lifelines now so closely tied to Moscow and Tehran, has China dealt a strategic blow that American economic dominance can't fully recover from? Is the West really ready for a world where it no longer holds all the keys? Let me know what you think in the comments below.